OpenAI is reportedly in intense discussions to bring back Sam Altman. That's after firing him 3 days ago and sending shockwaves throughout the tech industry. Altman was immediately hired by Microsoft, which saw shares of the company hitting record levels yesterday. But now they say they're open to sending him back. The Silicon Valley shakeup has been changing by the hour. Wall Street Journal reporter Dan Gallagher is joining us now. Dan, it is great to see you. So I guess to start, Dan, how do you think this plays out? Does Microsoft really bring in Sam Altman and maybe a whole bunch, hundreds of OpenAI employees? Hey, congrats to Nadella. They bring in one of the hottest tech startups on the planet, valued at, I think, down around $90 billion. Or does OpenAI's board cave here, Altman returns, and things go back to something like normal?
Well, Josh, only a very small number of people have any sense as how that question is going to get answered. Actually, none of them are Satya Nadella at Microsoft, because Microsoft has no actual power here. So I think the only people that can really answer that are the remaining members of OpenAI's board and Sam himself. If they're obviously in some kind of discussion, and so how that plays out, and if they decide to cave and reverse, and he decides to actually go back. It's all in their hands. And from what I've seen, nobody outside that group has any strong inkling of how that's going to work. And even many of the people, it seems like inside it, don't really know what they're doing, for lack of a better way of describing it, Dan. I mean, it just feels like that there is complete disarray, not to mention the fact that we still don't really understand what happened in the first place. I think disarray is actually a mild term. This is a total mess, and I've been covering tech a very long time, and I've not seen a case like this, especially one where a company of this size, we're talking more than 700 people, have essentially almost all threatened to quit if a board of directors doesn't essentially reverse a very high-profile decision. This is, it's huge. And it's high stakes for Microsoft too. They've put a lot of money into OpenAI, really touted the partnership over this past year, and so they've got to see the situation salvaged in some way. I think hiring Sam and offering up to hire, pretty much everybody at OpenAI was the best move they could make at the moment. But I think their ideal situation would be for Sam to go back to OpenAI and to have that leadership situation resolved.
And yeah, what do you make of Satya Nadella's leadership here? How do you think he's navigated this drama? I mean, reportedly he had, Daniel, basically no warning whatsoever this was happening. How do you think he's sort of managed it?
Probably as well as he could have in the circumstance, and the circumstance wasn't great. Again, they put so much money into this company, but actually have no say at it. So for finding out, it sounds like he found out like literally minutes before the news hit. Like when the rest of us did. So I think finding a way to hire him and bring in OpenAI again, that was probably the best thing they could do, as opposed to watching OpenAI fizzle and have all that talent kind of dispersed to other startups. But at the same time, again, Microsoft kind of now is in the situation where they've touted how important this partnership is. Now you're starting to see them get the word out of, we've got great AI in-house, we can do this ourselves, and they're kind of trying to have it both ways now, and it's really hard to do that.
You have to wonder too if Microsoft is not the only big investor in OpenAI, right? You have Thrive Ventures, you have Khosla, and among others, and you have to think that they're among those who are also pushing for Altman to return because they don't want their investment wiped out. So you wonder, in the wake of all of this, if you also will have a rewriting of the organization of OpenAI, where the nonprofit part just goes away. As you say, Microsoft technically doesn't have control, but could we see a situation where they will, along with the other investors?
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, it's pretty clear that the only way Sam Altman's going to go back is if things are changed structurally at OpenAI, so the kind of situation doesn't happen again. So if he doesn't, they don't come to some agreement, like, they may keep their structure, but OpenAI sounds like it may largely cease to exist, at least in the way it has been. So if Altman goes back, then it gets interesting, because what do Microsoft and the other investors do to say, hey, we'd like actually to have some say here, we'd like to have some protection for us, and can they get that? It's certainly possible. It's a big what if right now, because there's still a major hurdle to cross before you even get to that.
And Dan, I'll get you here on this. It's just a question I have about valuation, how you would think about it. OpenAI, reportedly valued around $90 billion. Let's say, Dan, Sam Altman did return to OpenAI. And so OpenAI staff, they stayed put. It returned to something like normal. Do you think that valuation would hold, or do you think it might take a hit just given all the drama, the mess that we've seen here over the past few days?
It's possible they could hold it, but I don't think they could hold it immediately. I think what's happened has legitimately scared anybody with an eye towards investing in it. So I think what they would need is some time to actually, if he came back and made some changes in the structure and showed that the company was operating stably, possible they could get something around that. But again, if they got back and then he went out like next week to try to do that, I don't think that would work. So I think you would need a little time, a little breathing time for investors in the world to kind of see, have things stabilized here. Is this company going to be different going forward? So the answer is yes, but not right now.
Well, the latest reporting says they're trying to figure this all out before Thanksgiving, and hopefully that is true for all of our sake and what we're going to be doing over the holiday weekend. Dan Gallagher from the Wall Street Journal, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.